Welcome to the Tim Booker channel, where wisdom is worth sharing. We wish you a pleasant listening experience. Feel free to tune in every day. Today, we're going to talk about a best-selling book called Originals. This book is all about unconventional individuals who change the world and achieve success. In the United States, there's a popular parenting website called Babbel, founded by Griscom. When seeking initial venture capital, Griscom did something that no entrepreneur would typically do. He presented a slide listing 5 reasons not to invest in his business. Yes, you heard that right. Usually, such a move is a fatal blow to a startup's pitch because investors want to see the reasons to invest. Entrepreneurs usually emphasize their strengths. However, Griscom's unconventional approach surprisingly worked. Babbel secured a $3.3 million investment. 2 years later, Griscom did it again when pitching Babbel to Disney. He listed several flaws, such as low user engagement and off-topic content, and the need for back-end adjustments. And you won't believe it, Disney acquired Babbel for $40 million. Conventional wisdom suggests that in order to be persuasive, one should emphasize strengths and downplay weaknesses. However, when presenting a new idea or a proposal for change, the audience often has doubts. When people realize that someone is trying to persuade them, they tend to raise their psychological defenses. At such moments, emphasizing flaws can actually reduce this resistance. Highlighting one's weaknesses can make the presenter appear smarter, as if they know where the problems lie and are not blinded by enthusiasm. It also makes people find them more trustworthy. What's even more important is that human information processing is biased, often leading to a psychological reaction where knowing the worst aspect of something makes other problems seem less severe. Babbel used this approach of soft communication against the mainstream and ultimately found success. This is just one case from the book Originals. So, why do counterintuitive and unconventional approaches lead to success? Is this the essence of entrepreneurship? The book analyzes situations like these and tells us how those who think outside the box can change the world. The author of this book is remarkable. His name is Adam Grant, and he is the youngest tenured professor at the Wharton School, one of the world's most renowned business schools. He has been listed as one of the 25 most influential management thinkers globally and has served as a senior advisor or speaker for companies like Google, Johnson & Johnson, Goldman Sachs, and Pixar Animation. His debut book, Getting More, was also a bestseller, and this second book, Originals, challenges conventional wisdom in various fields, particularly innovation. Originals covers counterintuitive and unconventional concepts in the innovation domain. It presents surprising scientific findings and debunks common misconceptions. Grant, an extremely unconventional thinker, takes on innovation and aims to rectify misunderstandings in the field. The book explores 5 key areas of counterintuitive thinking in innovation. 1. Innovators don't necessarily need to be first movers. 2. Successful innovators are often risk-averse. 3. Successful innovation often combines familiar elements. 4. Successful innovators frequently have strong self-doubt. 5. Prolific output leads to impactful creativity, with success correlating with the quantity of creative ideas. Let's start by looking at the first counterintuitive concept, which is that innovators don't need to be first movers. Grant believes that innovators who act swiftly and take the lead often have a greater innovation disadvantage than an advantage. People commonly think that innovation is all about being the first to market and that being late means losing out. However, Grant argues that this is one of the most significant misconceptions about innovation. They say the early bird catches the worm, but rarely do people consider that early birds are often caught. This might sound like a joke, but it's a fact. In marketing research, companies are categorized into 2 types: pioneers, who are the first to develop or sell a product, and settlers, who enter the market after pioneers have created it. Statistically, research on 36 different categories of hundreds of brands found that pioneers had a failure rate of 47%, while settlers only had an 8% failure rate. Pioneers are the first to enter the market, but they have to bear all the losses and are more likely to get stuck with early, rigid products. For instance, the world's first social networking site was called Friendster, founded in 2002, and it quickly gained 3 million users. However, the site didn't conduct precise user analysis and was only focused on expansion, which didn't generate ad revenue. In contrast, Facebook found success 2 years later by patiently analyzing user preferences and launching highly popular features based on those preferences. In this case, Facebook was a typical settler. Settlers, though they enter the market later, improve upon the weaknesses of their competitors, analyze market feedback for demand, learn from others' mistakes, and continually adapt to changing consumer needs. So, to be a successful innovator, you don't necessarily have to be the first mover. You just need to do things differently, break the mold. Settlers are often better at waiting for the right moment. Home video game consoles were developed as early as 1972, but it took Nintendo over a decade to create games like Super Mario Bros. And establish a dominant market position. During those years, Nintendo was simply waiting for the right time. They invested a significant amount of time in enhancing their game console controllers, making games more appealing, and using original technology to innovate the gaming industry. They are a classic example of settlers. Sometimes, innovators wait not because of technical reasons but to allow social status to rise. Research has found that exercising power without status leads to punishment. If someone's contributions to the workplace and society are insufficient, they won't receive enough social respect and, subsequently, won't gain status. Status isn't achieved overnight, it requires patience and waiting. From the perspective of being skilled at waiting, successful innovators could be considered procrastinators. Procrastination is the archenemy of efficiency, but it can also foster creativity. Throughout history, many thinkers and inventors had a tendency to procrastinate. For example, it took Leonardo da Vinci 16 years to complete the Mona Lisa, during which he conducted optical experiments and worked on various other projects. His optical experiments significantly influenced the creation of the Mona Lisa. Similarly, Abraham Lincoln's famous Gettysburg Address was only halfway completed the night before the speech. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech took 2 months of preparation and wasn't finalized the night before the speech. Da Vinci, Lincoln, and King's procrastination wasn't unproductive waste of time, they were continually testing, optimizing, and gradually progressing. They had accumulated significant creative energy long before achieving immense success. It was just a matter of the final piece falling into place. So, sometimes, genius-like inspiration occurs spontaneously. The word "dream" in Martin Luther King's speech, for example, was an impromptu addition during the speech because someone in the audience called out for him to share his dream. In that moment, Martin Luther King decided to say, "I have a dream," which perfectly fit the atmosphere at the time and contributed to making the speech a classic. But without the extensive prior preparation, he wouldn't have been able to grasp that captivating phrase so easily. Procrastination allows people to generate new ideas through thoughtful consideration and opens the door to spontaneity. Great innovators are often great procrastinators, possessing a unique discipline to resist the temptation of completing tasks early and instead waiting for the right moment of excitement. The second counterintuitive concept of innovation is that successful innovators are more risk-averse. People's desire for success is often accompanied by a fear of failure. When this motivation becomes overwhelming, it can actually stifle innovation. So, many times, what people are pursuing isn't unique success, but rather a more assured path to success. Innovators and change agents are no exception. In fact, quite often, they find themselves making great achievements passively. For instance, Michelangelo initially believed he could only do sculpture, not painting. When the Pope asked him to paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling, he fled to Florence in search of solace. It took the Pope 2 years of persuasion to finally convince him to take on the task. Nicholas Copernicus was equally cautious. He kept his heliocentric theory under wraps for 22 years before publishing it, only doing so under pressure from others. Prudent innovators tread carefully, and a prominent characteristic is that many of them keep an escape route open before achieving success. Steve Wozniak continued his full-time job for a year after co-founding Apple with Steve Jobs. Google's founders pursued graduate studies at Stanford University while starting their company because obtaining a PhD would provide a safety net in life. Bill Gates, famously, didn't drop out to start developing software but rather took a leave of absence, and his parents even provided him with some financial support. In the world of stock markets, there's a theory that if you're going to make a risky investment, you should also be cautious with your other investments to protect yourself. Successful innovators, when taking substantial risks in one area, tend to be extremely cautious in other areas to balance the risk. Data also supports this perspective. Studies have shown that entrepreneurs who continue their regular job while starting a business have a 33% lower probability of failure compared to those who quit their jobs to start a business. Smart entrepreneurs aren't risk-averse, they simply avoid stepping on landmines when making critical decisions. The third counterintuitive concept of innovation is that successful innovation always needs to be paired with familiar elements. Let's take an example from the 1990s when a group of Disney screenwriters wanted to create an original animated film. They came up with the script for The Lion King, and when they presented it to Disney executives, they described it as a story in which an uncle kills the father, and the son seeks revenge, which is reminiscent of Hamlet. This reference to Shakespearean elements provided the executives with a familiar point of reference, allowing them to connect the exotic savannah setting with a classic storyline. This helped them understand the writer's vision clearly and made them confident that a script like this would sell well. Subsequently, in 1994, The Lion King became the highest-grossing film of that year. The most promising ideas for success are often not entirely novel but rather build upon a new foundation by adding familiar elements. Data shows that doing so can increase the practicality of innovation by 14%. This taps into the psychological mere exposure effect, which suggests that people tend to like something more the more familiar they are with it. Thus, repeated exposure makes it easier for people to understand the content. While incorporating familiar elements might be seen as traditional, it is a necessary aspect of successful innovation. Researchers have found that, in most cases, innovators need to become moderate radicals to succeed. They challenge conventional values but have learned to present their ideas in less shocking and more mainstream ways. Sometimes, they hide their true vision within a Trojan horse. In 2011, a university student named Perry wanted to achieve wireless charging. He reached out to dozens of technical experts to collaborate with them. Perry initially explained his concept, but the experts pointed out theoretical flaws. Perry changed his approach. He no longer told the experts what he wanted to create but instead asked for their help in making specific components, like designing a sensor with particular functions, creating a particular receiver, or transmitter. Gradually, he revealed the entire wireless charging structure. 3 years later, when he participated in a public event with figures like Bill Clinton, he was the only one who received a standing ovation from the audience. His strategy shifted the focus from why to how. Instead of trying to describe an abstract concept, he allowed people to gradually accept his visionary idea within familiar, tangible structures. Is Perry radical? Yes. Is Perry traditional? Yes. But he cleverly combined both to innovate and create a great product. The fourth counterintuitive concept of innovation is that successful innovators often possess strong self-nostalgia and self-doubt. Suppressing their sharpness is something they reluctantly do. Economist Schumpeter once said, "Innovation is a creative destruction." The impact of innovation can be so significant that it may lead to criticism, retaliation due to harming others' interests, and strained interpersonal relationships. Even the most exceptional innovators feel anxious at times, and when they don't, they might be more prone to problems. At the turn of the century, electric balance board technology created a buzz in Silicon Valley, with many innovation titans, including Steve Jobs, considering it one of the most astonishing technologies after personal computing. They rushed to invest in it. However, what happened to it now? What was once believed to be a world-changing technology was ranked by Time magazine as one of the top 10 failed tech products of the past decade. The inventor of the electric balance board was Dean Kamen, often regarded as one of the greatest inventors since Edison, and Steve Jobs was well known for his innovative abilities. So, why did they misjudge this technology? Overconfidence played a significant role. It led to excessive passion in the innovation process, causing a lack of rational market analysis. In the realm of innovation, excessive self-assuredness is a cognitive bias that can be particularly challenging to overcome. Innovators should be cautious about it. Psychologists classify people who challenge the status quo into two categories: strategic optimists and defensive pessimists. Strategic optimists make the best-case scenario predictions and set high expectations while remaining calm. Defensive pessimists make worst-case scenario predictions and imagine everything going wrong, causing intense anxiety. People usually believe that strategic optimists are more likely to succeed, but psychologists have found that defensive pessimists perform just as well. This is because defensive pessimists anticipate all possibilities and prepare to avoid adverse outcomes by thinking through every detail. Although they experience anxiety, they also feel more in control. Innovation requires the courage to embrace fear, and in the face of fear, it's essential to adopt the thinking patterns of defensive pessimists. They should confront their fears, consider the worst-case scenarios, and use the high energy of anxiety to motivate themselves to move forward. American psychologist Kahneman conducted a study in 2002, revealing how to motivate people to face risks. Suppose you are an executive in a car company and, due to a poor economic situation, you need to close 3 factories and lay off 6,000 employees. You have 2 plans to choose from. Plan A can save 1 factory and 2,000 jobs, while Plan B can save all factories and jobs but with only a 1/3 chance of success, otherwise, all factories and jobs will be lost. Which plan would you choose? The study showed that most people would choose Plan A to seek stability because both plans are described from the perspective of gains, and people generally prefer to avoid risks. However, if you change the description slightly by framing it in terms of losses and risks, people's risk preferences are altered. Suppose you have to close 3 factories and lay off 6,000 employees in either case, and there are 2 plans. If you choose Plan A, you will lose 2 factories and reduce 4,000 jobs. If you choose Plan B, you have a 2/3 chance of losing all factories and jobs, but a 1/3 chance of saving everything. This time, over 80% of people chose Plan B, ready to take the risk to save everything. In both scenarios, the essence of Plans A and B remained the same, but the wording was altered, affecting people's risk preferences. Through the change in wording, you can influence people's risk preferences. Kahneman was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2002 for this research, and this study can be applied to motivate individuals to face risks in innovation dilemmas. The 5th counterintuitive concept of innovation is that high productivity fosters impactful creativity. The number of successful creative ideas is directly proportional to the total number of ideas. The more one produces, the more likely they are to innovate successfully, even if most of what they create receives a lukewarm response. Throughout Picasso's lifetime, he produced many enduring classics, but these were only a small fraction of the over 10,000 works he created. Shakespeare's famous works are familiar, but they represent only a few of the dozens of plays he crafted during his years. Similarly, renowned masters like Mozart, Beethoven, and Bach have only a small portion of their total creations recognized as classics. Many people commonly believe that quantity and quality cannot coexist and that doing one thing exceptionally well is essential for success. However, this does not apply to innovation. In fact, the most productive individuals often exhibit the most innovative spirit, and their most creative works arise during their most prolific life phases. Research shows that composers are more likely to produce masterpieces when they create a greater number of compositions within a 5-year period. For most people, initial ideas tend to be quite traditional. Only by continuously proposing new ideas and gradually eliminating those that align too closely with the default norms can innovation truly flourish. Being highly productive implies multiple experiments, and innovators can be divided into 2 categories: conceptual and experimental. Conceptual innovators are like sprinters who often introduce groundbreaking concepts shortly after entering a new field, making significant contributions. However, they are susceptible to the risk of self-replication. Studies indicate that the more successful someone has been in the past, the worse they tend to perform in a new environment because they frequently believe they are right and are less receptive to criticism. This can lead to a success trap, causing some early innovators to become immersed in their initial innovative achievements and stuck in a rigid mindset. Einstein is a typical conceptual innovator. He ventured into the theory of relativity in his early 20s and astounded the world. However, he later opposed quantum mechanics and missed the next major revolution in physics. Experimental innovators are like marathon runners. Their astonishing creative ideas often require more time, but they excel at continuous experimentation, overturning one idea after another, trying new concepts, and conducting various experiments. The more experiments they conduct, the less they are confined by their own ideas, and their regenerative ability grows stronger. This effectively removes the most significant obstacle to innovation. Thus, their innovation levels remain consistently high. Martin Luther King Jr. is a typical experimental innovator who spent 20 years accumulating public speaking experience. Through continuous experimentation with different expressions, element combinations, emotional management, and iterative testing, he ultimately delivered the famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Balancing risk, timing, combining elements, managing emotions, and constant experimentation all demonstrate that innovation is a controllable behavior. Some scholars argue that most people, when making decisions, prefer appropriateness logic. In the same situation, they contemplate how someone like them should act, relying on their inner qualities and aspiring to become someone specific. Innovation is not an innate genetic trait but rather a result of individuals' free choices. Here is the core content of the book, Rebel Innovators, discussed. Let's review some of the counterintuitive and unconventional insights presented in the book one more time. 1. Innovators don't need to be ahead of the curve. 2. Successful innovators are often risk-averse. 3. Successful innovation typically involves incorporating familiar elements. 4. Successful innovators often possess strong self-doubt. 5. Productivity breeds impactful creativity, and the number of successful creative ideas is proportional to the total number of ideas. In addition, Rebel Innovators presents many unexpected viewpoints and summarizes various counterintuitive innovation theories. For example, it suggests that sometimes having a common goal can lead to division within an innovation group. It also proposes that the more loyal employees are to a company's values, the more its innovation potential declines. Furthermore, it challenges conventional wisdom by suggesting that innovation allies can sometimes be former opponents. These insights challenge previous notions and encourage us to rethink the concept of innovation. Congratulations on completing another book, and thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker Channel audiobook channel, like, and share with your family and friends. Wisdom is worth spreading, and together, we can create a better future. Thank you, and goodbye.